First one we have is Argonauts, and this plays 1 to 4 players and takes about 20 to 30 minutes to play. And this one is a cooperative game where players are going to be sailing across the Mediterranean Sea in order to try and collect the Golden Fleece and return it back to their homeland. Players are going to be playing as those different Argonauts as they use that Argo to sail across the sea. And although players are working together, each player is going to be controlling their own squad of Argonauts, which each are going to have different stats and abilities, and they're going to be favored or cursed by different gods, which can help or hinder them in certain situations. In addition to the Argonauts, players are going to be managing a few different resources. One of these resources is known as your crew, and these are crew that are separate than your Argonaut cards. These are just represented by a track on the main map. But then there's also different resources like your money and your food, which you'll be using to feed your crew. Players are going to be beginning the game with a full crew, but absolutely no resources. But every single round, you're going to be moving down your food stores by 1. Unless you're not able to do so, then you're going to be losing 1 of your crew. Players will then be able to move their Argo 1 space forward on the map, and then you're going to be drawing an event card depending on what type of space you landed on. This can bring players to different ports where they can trade, rest, or perform other special actions, or they could find themselves in random encounters out on the ocean fighting against giant mythical beasts or finding other opportunities. But then there are also legendary encounter locations that could have you fighting against other demigods or titans that are just a little bit more powerful and will take a little bit more from the players in order to defeat. But whether or not players are trading or fighting, they're going to be exhausting cards from their hand in order to do so. This means that you're going to be limiting the cards you have in the future anytime that you're performing any actions in this game, which means that you really have to decide what you want to do so that you don't leave yourself too short if you run into trouble in the future. If that does happen, and it probably will, your ship is going to be taking damage, and players can lose the game if their ship takes too much damage, but you can also lose if you completely run out of crew. Otherwise, if players are able to collect that fleece and get back to their original location, then they win the game. And the next game offered in this campaign is called Deus Ex Machina. This plays 2 to 4 players. It takes about 25 to 30 minutes to play. And this one is actually a competitive game. And the way this game works is that each player is going to be playing as a different god. You're going to have a board to track your available strength and cunning, but you're going to be spending that to try and complete different objectives or battles throughout the game. Each player is also going to have 2 workers, and the game plays over a series of rounds. And each round, players are going to be alternating putting one of their workers out on the various locations on the board. Each of these locations are going to offer one of 2 options. The player can either increase their stats by the amount indicated at that location, or instead they can choose to battle one of these cards located in the column in the center of the row. Each of these cards is going to have a certain amount of cunning and strength needed in order to overcome it. And you can get that by spending it from your own personal player board, but you can also use a hero card located on the rightmost column in order to add their strength and cunning to that battle. All these cards have icons on them as well, and of course to engage in one of these challenges, you're going to have to put your worker on a location that matches that specific icon. When it comes to the hero cards, you don't have to match the icons, but you will get a special bonus if you are able to match those as well. Each of the cards come with their own bonuses and stats depending on the cards that you're choosing, but they can also be augmented by different values that are printed on the board, depending on which space they got put into. The game continues like this, with players taking turns trying to complete as many of these challenges as possible in order to increase their victory points for the end of the game. But each player will also be able to increase their odds by taking advantage of their own specific ability cards that they'll be able to use throughout the game. And you can also get additional victory points if you are able to create different sets of these icons when you do complete those challenges. And these first 2 games that I just talked about have already been released in the past, and they do have expansions, and I believe all of that's going to be provided in the campaign, and there might be some new things added as well. But this next one here is a brand new entry, and it's called Troy and plays 2 players and takes about 15 to 20 minutes to play. And this one is more of your head-to-head skirmish. And the way that this game works is that players are either going to be playing as the Trojans or the Greeks, and you're going to be going up against each other trying to win a war. Players are going to be starting the game by placing some of their units from their hand into a row at the center of the table. And you're going to be initially putting these face down, and then players will be able to place a limited number of bolster cards in order to increase the value of some of those cards. Those cards are then going to be revealed and resolved with players using their strength to try and defeat their opponent's cards. But there is more to this battle because players will also each have their own heroes, as well as some divine powers from the gods. These will be able to be taken advantage of to swing the odds in your favor in various ways and perform various special actions. And this is going to take place over 4 rounds with players gaining victory points depending on if they won that battle. But then at the end of the game, players are going to be going head to head with their heroes and the powers of the gods to have one final epic clash. The players whose army prevails wins the game, and you can find a link to this campaign in the description below, and of course click to get notified.